right, welcome back, friends. Welcome back to Corbett Report Radio. I am your host, James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. All renewed and energized for another week of broadcasts, and what exciting broadcasts we have lined up for you. Especially, I think tonight's conversation is going to be very interesting. And as longtime listeners of this broadcast will know, I've been trying to highlight the work of artists and musicians and others who are able to put into artistic form the types of things that we talk about on a daily basis here on the program. And I think it's important to do so because obviously art has such a powerful effect in shaping our minds, our consciousness, and not just in an airy-fairy or abstract way. There's a very real way in which art can truly galvanize public opinion on an issue. And you only have to take a look, for example, at Oliver Stone's JFK and the way that at least partially contributed to the passing of the so-called JFK Act of 1992, which formed the Assassinations Records Review Board, and all of the incredible information about the JFK assassination that came out from that could at least in part be attributed to the galvanizing of public opinion that came in the wake of JFK. So the question is, what if such a movie or such a real game-changing piece of art were able to be created about 9/11. And that's why I'm very excited to have on the line tonight Howard Cohen, a screenwriter and producer who is also a signatory to the Actors and Artists for 9/11 Truth petition at aa911truth.org. And he has been in the magazine publishing business for decades. He's also worked in consulting with former U.S. Ambassador Joe Wilson. And he is the author of a script for a forthcoming movie called A Violation of Trust, which seeks to dramatize the first day of a president's new investigation into 9/11. So, Howard Cohen, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate the opportunity. I really like that introduction. Thank you.
Well,
I hope I can live up to it.
Well, I'm sure you'll be able to. Well, I certainly do mean it, because I think it is so important that we look at it and explore all the aspects of bringing people's attention to various issues, especially sensitive political issues like 9/11. So right off the bat, I just gave a very brief summary of yourself and your background, but perhaps you can fill us in a little bit more detail about who you are and where you're coming from.
Well, the magazine thing started about 40 years ago. I used to do concert programs for Carnegie Hall in New York City, so I was able to drop off the magazines every night and go sit in an empty seat, which was a great time. I went to 200 concerts in 3 years. And a business relationship with Joe Wilson went through the period when, unfortunately, Valerie was outed. In fact, I was involved with that to the extent that I was on I was a witness for the people that were grand jurying for Scooter Libby and such. In fact, some articles from one of your recent guests from Truth Out, Jason Leopold, about me in that regard. But I got involved in this 9/11 stuff about 5 years ago, and after 2 years of studying it, I just said, everybody wants a new investigation, and David Griffin's books, which I respected very much, said the best way to go about that is prove that the old investigation was no good. So I said, what would happen if people turned on the TV one day, like on C-SPAN, and they were watching a new investigation for a couple of hours? And that's how it started. I called David. I asked him if I could do it. He said, go right ahead. And I'm not a movie person as far as in the business, but I'm right in Hollywood now making a movie. So you never know what drives
you. Never do know. Well, I never expected to be in Japan hosting a radio broadcast in Texas via the internet, so one never knows how these things are going to turn out. But absolutely incredible to see this getting launched off the ground here. And again, for people who are looking for more information, they can go to Actors and Artists for 9/11 Truth at aa911truth.org. And of course, there will be a link in the show notes for tonight's episode at corbettreport.com/radio to all of the relevant information. Let's take a short break, and when we come back from this break, we'll continue talking with Howard Cohen about A Violation of Trust. welcome back to the broadcast, friends. We are here on Corbett Report Radio on this 30th of January, 2012, and today we're talking to Howard Cohen, the producer and screenwriter behind A Violation of Trust, a forthcoming feature film about 9/11 and a new investigation into 9/11. And hopefully this is a case where we can take fiction and make it into reality. But Howard Cohen, let's start talking about this project. And first, let's start talking about actors and artists for 9/11 Truth and some of the people who are on board with that and who have become signatories to that petition.
Well, about two and a half years ago, I first heard of the idea that David Griffin and some people in the Hollywood area were going to put this group together. And since I was just starting to work on the movie, I saw the immediate connection to it. So as it progressed, I followed it along. They launched the group actually on 9/11. Actually, it was 9/9. They had an event at the City Hall in Los Angeles. Similarly, they had an event in Washington, D.C., and also one in New York City. They were launching three groups. I think it was military officers for 9/11 Truth, actors and artists for 9/11 Truth, and I believe it was scientists for 9/11 Truth. And I just came to L.A. about a week before that, so I showed up at the event, and I was, standing on the steps and watching it being filmed, and I think we had Joseph Culp here, and John Hurd, and Michele Phillips speaking, and Daniel Sunjata was in New York. I think Richard Gage might have been in Washington. It brought this group to the public's knowledge. Somewhere along the line, they said, that since we're doing the movie under the auspices of the organization, maybe I would serve as the director so that we'd have a single face speaking about both ends of it. But there are a couple of hundred people that have signed this petition, asking for a new investigation. And they are actors and they are artists of all kinds of creations, not just the movie business. A lot of people in music, from Willie Nelson to Graham Nash, all different levels of craft. And I feel
exactly right. And some of the names here are just incredible. Some of the people who are already confirmed to be on board with the film: Ed Asner, Martin Sheen, Woody Harrelson, Daniel Sunjata. It just goes on and on. But what stage is it at this point?
Well, we're negotiating with a studio here in Glendale. They've already offered to allow us to make the movie there. And we're talking with production companies and what they call post-production companies, where they finish the movie after it's been filmed. We have a certain amount of money committed. We have a national distributor international distributor we're talking with. We have a deal on the table that we're looking at to have a TV world premiere on 9/11, which is on a Tuesday this year, just as it was in 2001, where maybe dozens and dozens of countries across the world would show the movie on the same day. For a low-budget movie, which is what they consider us, and we're not doing Transformers, if you know what I'm trying to say. And we don't have the kind of money that Oliver Stone had to make JFK. But this movie is more a matter of, for people who might know movies, 12 Angry Men meets 9/11. It all takes place in one room. And you have a dozen or so people that are there back and forth discussing these issues and deciding whether or not this new investigation is the thing to do. And we go
well, that's right. I mean, that's the thing that excites me perhaps most about this, is that reading the description of the plot, it sounds very much like something that will be extremely based in the evidence, and will be really delving into it in some degree of detail, and hopefully, if it gets really off the ground, exposing millions of people around the world to this evidence, perhaps for the first time. So that's exactly what we need in this, I think, to really get people to start questioning their own assumptions. And on that note, I suppose the obligatory question in this type of interview is, how did you start questioning your assumptions about 9/11, and how did the seeds of doubt about what happened on that day get planted in your own mind?
Well, the truth of the matter is, I met a couple on a Saturday night, husband and wife. They were in the lobby of the Marriott Courtyard Hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I was living, and we were chatting. They were both from Florida, where I had lived. And they said, come over and look at this computer. We want to show you this website. We got into this 9/11. And I got hooked. It's contagious. And that was really how it started. And I had the time and the energy and the desire to learn about it. I like to sponge things up. And I told you before, one thing led to the next. I mean, there's a series of events in life. We never know where they start. For me, my relationship with 9/11 didn't start on 9/11, although I was in Washington, D.C. that day. I remember 10 minutes after the first plane, hit, the second plane hit, I think it was. I was at George Washington University. I walked to Georgetown. Every corner had a Jeep with a guy with a really big gun. I mean, I was there, and our producer, Paul Cross, who's already made one 9/11 movie, Severe Visibility, and he's got another one right now that's just going to be finished. He was in there also, not because of me. He was there working on an actual documentary with President Bush in the White House. And he was doing some post-production work, and he said 5 hours after the Pentagon was hit, I was there. I went across the water, and I was looking at it, and he said, I just knew something was wrong. There was no plane, he said. And then he figured whatever happened in New York must be just as phony. Everyone deals with it differently. Paul was affected immediately, and he was a staunch Republican, and he just felt, so he told me he got sick in the bathroom because of it. For me, it really just started to hit me, like I said, in that hotel. I met the right people at the right time, and they turned me on to it. And I'm hoping that this movie, and there's plenty of movies that are out, these documentaries are fantastic, and Loose Change reached tens of millions of people. But we think that the way we're presenting the information through a question and answer procedure are the questions that the people would have when they hear the information in a documentary format. And we do, a lot of this is based on the psychology of why people are not open to what has affected their lives so gravely. We live in a charade.
Unfortunately, very true. In some ways, that really is the basis of all of this, just the public's incredulity that this could possibly have happened. And it is a matter of breaking through that, and everybody has their own way of coming to that. And unfortunately, not everyone is woken up by just seeing the facts in the videos quite as easily as others. So something like this hopefully can break through that. So let's talk about the development of the script and how this started to come together.
Well, I think I'm on the 377th version because I keep changing it all the time, and mainly because we have to have factually now I'm talking, we have to have a bulletproof script, because when this thing is released, there's going to be a lot of people are going to find they only want to look at the one little hole, if there is one, that they can blow the whole thing apart. And the media would not necessarily, as it stands today, be friendly to something that is so outspoken as we are about the validity of the official reports. So we have to be bulletproof. And, there's so many things going on. I mean, now that the thing is being announced, I'm getting people wanting me to look at every aspect of every theory they might have about 9/11. And David Griffin and myself, when we first started down this path, he put together a thesis. He says, let's follow these points, and it's the best way.